Welcome to The Art of Being Unstoppable, the podcast where we will go beyond the ordinary and embrace the extraordinary. Be part of down-to-earth, no BS conversations where we will explore hot topics on love and money, relationships and business, beauty, and who we get to be with all that shit in between. With our insights and your actions, let's be unstoppable together. Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Art of Being Unstoppable. And before we pressed record, we were talking about communication. And I don't know about you guys, but I truly feel like communication is the foundation of living. But have we actually ever been trained on how to communicate with each other? And I thought maybe this would be a great segue into our episode today. Vicki, what do you think? Do you think we are actually trained on how to communicate with each other in a way where we feel really heard and really understood and really validated?
No. And I don't think,
No.
I don't, no, I really don't. And I also don't think that as much as we aren't trained on how to communicate, but we're not trained on how to listen either.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think it goes both ways. I think it goes both ways to speak to the point of, you and I can have a conversation, but are you really hearing me, or are you just going, and then thinking about, oh, okay, when I get home, I have to do my groceries and I have to do this and I have to do that. Or are you really listening to hear what I have to say? Right. Listening is such a powerful tool.
Yeah, or listening to respond to what you're saying.
Yeah.
So there's two things. I know when I'm not fully present, it really creates an immediate disconnect between me and somebody else. If somebody's talking and I'm thinking about dinner, I am not fully present.
Yeah.
That energy is broken between us, and people don't really understand that. But anytime you have a physical experience of, are you even listening? Or how many times are we talking to people and people are on their phone scrolling? Yep. I mean, that has probably got to be my biggest pet peeve ever. And I will actually say, oh, I'll wait. I remember I was on a date one time. I won't tell you which one, if it was motorcycle guy or but I remember he was looking outside, looking around, and I remember saying, okay, I'll wait. And he said, what? And I said, well, I can tell that you're not present. So I don't know what's more important than this conversation right now, but I'll wait for you to figure out what that is and come back to the conversation. And I think he was really, I think presently surprised. And I say pleasantly because nobody has ever done that. And I don't think he realized the impact of him not being present. And the other thing is, I value the connection. And if I don't want to talk to a wall, I don't want to talk to a phone. I want to talk to humans. And I want to wait until you're ready to receive that communication.
It's kind of the connection. That's key. When you said that, value the connection. That is giving or receiving. That is when you're speaking or listening. You got to value that connection. And I don't know, were you ever taught that? I wasn't. To value that connection. I think it was almost a given when we were younger and there wasn't so much technology. And we bring this up quite often about how technology has so sucked everything away from us, because that's our biggest thing is our phone. We are always on the phone, right? We don't disconnect. And even to say, oh yeah, I disconnected, but did you really? It's not always that easy. But, to communicate with somebody, and, the last few weeks have been a really big turnaround for me in my personal life. I've really had to dig deep to figure out why am I stuck? What am I up against here? And it was big. It was a big up, and because obviously you're my friend, you're my coach. But when I came up against this, I needed my people to hear me say, I need this time to figure out what I'm going through, because I needed to listen to me. just as important as it is to listen to others, we need to listen to ourselves. And I haven't been. I have not been listening to myself in almost 4 years. And I know that. And that is the hardest thing to do because that means we have to stop doing. We have to stop being busy. We have to stop creating all of these things of have tos so that we don't have to deal with the what tos and the get tos. And when we coach people, like we've had this conversation before, we feel aligned. Like when I'm coaching someone, I know exactly what I need to do. But when I have to take those steps for myself, sometimes that wall seems to be so big. So being
Well, yeah.
able to listen to myself, to be able to articulate the proper way of how I'm feeling so that myself can understand how I'm feeling, but also those around me so that they can support me and love me through it.
Yeah, I think you bring up a valid point about listening to ourselves because if we're not paying attention to that inner dialogue, and especially people that are coaches, consultants, service providers that are holding space for other people, if we're not clear, if we're not fully present, if we have, oh, what am I going to make for dinner and what are my kids going to do? And if we don't listen to ourselves, tune in and get connected, that disconnect happens on the call because I know, and I've done this many, many times. Like, this is not a judgment because I catch myself now because it was to the point where I was so in my head, I couldn't actually be out there with anybody else. And then you feel that. And I say this all the time, people lie, energy doesn't.
Yeah.
I can unconsciously be
Mhm.
lying by like pretending that I'm paying attention to what you're saying. But if my thoughts are someplace else, people don't need to hear you say, I'm in my head. They feel it,
They
you
feel
know,
it.
and this is why I say communication is foundation. How many times do we not communicate what's there because we're afraid of what people might think? We're afraid of rocking the boat. We're afraid of hurting people's feelings. And I know this was me for many years. Like, just yesterday I had a conversation with somebody and I had to be really, really straight and say, like, listen, there isn't this romantic connection here. We're just friends and that's all it's ever going to be. But
Yeah.
before, I'd be so afraid to actually express that because, well, what if he gets mad, and well, what about me? What about
Exactly.
my feelings and
Exactly.
my thoughts? And you know what? Sometimes when we do communicate, we either dodge a bullet quickly or we actually shift something with somebody else. We start this conversation, there's dialogue. But how many times does that happen in business, in organizations, where something doesn't feel right or something, you get, upset with somebody, and instead of dealing with the person, you go and gossip to other
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
spread, you know what I mean? Instead of just dealing with it, we make it so much bigger by not just saying what's on our heart and what's on our mind.
Yeah.
And I
And I
feel that
think
if we,
you're right when you say that what's on your heart and your mind, that connection,
mm,
because that's important, Tina. That is a huge, huge
yeah.
important thing.
No, I even sometimes people will say to me, well, how do I communicate with my teenagers? They seem to be in their own little world. And how do I open up the conversation? I don't think it's hard to open up the conversation. I think our thoughts about it being hard
Mhm.
is making it more challenging. If we can just put our thoughts, feelings, and emotions in check and just start the conversation, it's going to go the way that it goes. But we sometimes try and figure out the outcome, get all of our ducks in a row, get
Yeah.
everything pre-planned. And communication doesn't always work that way because we don't
No,
know where it's going to go.
no, we don't.
And going through life trying to mitigate risk I think last week we did a podcast episode about like
Yeah.
what's your fear if this happens? Oh, if I communicate, then what? Well, then they might get upset, and then what? And then we bring ourselves to death again.
Yeah.
So it's like um, when
But
we think
with
that it's hard, we make it
communication,
hard.
yes, yes. And with communication, I feel like with communication, there's boundaries, right? And that's another episode, obviously, but boundaries that we get to put up because we're actually saying how we feel and what we need in the communication. Like when I was going through this breakthrough, I had a breakdown to get a breakthrough. When I was going through this breakdown, you checked in on me every day. I had friends checking in on me, right? Like, you know, that is very important. We need to ask for help. We need to ask for people, please support me through this. I don't know what I'm doing. Like I can't get through this alone. My husband, part of my really figuring things out was right now I work from my home. I owned a salon for 25 years and I worked out of my house. Then after that, I worked out of my house. This is the first time in my life that I've worked in my house. And, since in the last 4 years, I've been in this house. Okay. Which and people say, well, what's the difference? My office is going to be just outside. It's different. You are leaving your home where you don't see what needs to be dusted, what needs to be cleaned. So my communication to my husband was I was giving him all of those little when you get the garage done, and that's not fair because there's reasons why, it's not fair for me to throw stones at him. I need to sit and communicate the reasons why I need this. So when we communicate
Ooh,
with each other, right? I got to say to him,
yes,
listen, it isn't just about the garage. It's about me being able to be separated from our home and each other, right? We're in this home together all the time as well. So I need that space. I need to create some space for myself to keep my sanity, if that makes
yeah,
sense. And,
yeah.
but instead of me saying, well, pointing fingers at him all the time and making him wrong for not doing what I want him to do, I got to explain it to him the reason why I wanted him to do it.
Yeah. Well, you brought up a really great um like light bulb moment in my mind because there are different ways of communicating and I've identified four different types of communication patterns. One is passive, one's
Yeah.
aggressive, one's passive aggressive, and one is assertive. So the passive people don't communicate what's on their heart and mind, and they just, let everything slide until sometimes there's a big blow up, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the aggressive people are in your face. They're like, oh, did it, they're just it's when you feel when somebody's communicating you almost feel like you shrink when they're speaking.
Yes.
Then there's
Yeah.
the passive aggressive. I like to call like the passive aggressive communication is almost like the snakes in the grass. you know like don't turn your back because they'll bite you in the ass. Like nice in your face, mean behind your back. And assertive is just full on boundaries. I'm going to communicate what's there for me. I'm going to do it in a loving way. You matter, I matter, and let's resolve this. And I think a lot of people have a hard time being assertive in their communication,
Mm.
but you can be assertive and loving. When you come from that loving space,
Yeah.
it's it's saying that I want to make you feel good when I'm communicating, but I also want to feel good when I'm communicating. My needs matter and your needs matter. And when we might think that being passive is really great communication,
Yep.
but you never get your needs met when
Mhm.
you are passive. And you sometimes you delay the inevitable. And so when we are aware of how we communicate, uh, and we're responsible for how we communicate, because you said, yeah, I've been like, well, if this was done, it's almost, I mean, I don't know if it's aggressive, but probably a little passive aggressive.
Passive aggressive, I would say. Oh, most certainly. As soon as you said passive aggressive, I said, oh, yeah, that's me. And because of the anger too, and that feeling of, are you freaking kidding me, man? Let's just skip this. And now I get to hear him why the delays have been happening, right? Like in his mind, his reasoning. So then we come to this place together to decide, okay, what's the plan? Let's create a plan together. And that's the difference. He got to listen to me. I got to speak my thoughts and feelings, and then I got to listen to him. So that was like this turning point for me as well, because I realized that it wasn't over there with him. It wasn't because of my parents passing that I'm in this dark place. It wasn't because of A, B, C, D. It wasn't because of any of those things. It was just because I was going through what I was going through, and I needed to allow myself to feel it and actually go through it to get to the other side. And learning
Yeah,
along
a
that
million
way,
percent.
right? And I got to learn along the way that how I speak is you can't change what they hear once you've said those words. And that's not fair, right? So
Yeah.
I get to apologize for what I say, and what I say sometimes is, and that's important to own it. And to really, like you said, when we communicate, to do it from a place of love, and
And
as well
being
as listening.
conscious.
Yes. And as well as listening
Yeah.
from that place of love.
It's all about being conscious of how we are showing up. I went away with my mom and my aunt and my sister this weekend. It was really fabulous. We went to the Fergus Scottish Festival, and like my sister is the person that would give you the shirt off of her back. Like, I mean, she is so giving, so loving. And sometimes we're like oil and water. We're very different. So we got into a little bit of a squabble, like sisters do.
Yeah.
And I remember like just kind of feeling like certain things, it was passive aggressive communication. That was my experience, not the truth, my experience. And after one, two, three, four times, I just said, listen, people lie, energy doesn't. I don't like your energy towards me sometimes. You can be a little passive aggressive, and I just don't like it. And she's like, oh, Tina, Miss, oh, I'm so authentic. Why don't you be authentic? And she kind of got aggressive with me. And I had to pause. What a pleasure. This is me. This is not her. It looks like it's her. But, all my tools, I had to come in. And I said, no, listen, I am communicating, but I need you to listen to my communication. I'm not saying it's the truth for you, but I'm saying it is the truth for me. It's my experience. Now you can keep with the little digs and this and that, but I'm just sharing with you how it makes me feel. And I'm just communicating that. And that was not easy for me. And yeah, I did get a little like louder than I normally would, and maybe a little more aggressive. But at the same time, we loved each other. We hugged it out. We figured it
Yeah.
out. It was a little messy, but when you care about somebody, it's our job. It circles back to the beginning of this message. It's the foundation of living. If we can't communicate with the people that we love, or if we practice communicating with the people that we love, it makes it easier with the people that, are out there. If we can practice the pause with strangers, why not practice the pause with the safe people in our life, the people that we love in our life? And this is the other thing. I think when you express yourself, I know when I expressed myself, I caught my sister being mindful of how she was showing up for me. She might not have agreed with me in that moment, but there was a pause later on, like, oh, wait a minute. She respected me enough to say, okay, Tina's a little sensitive. Tina's a little whatever, but I'm going to watch how I show up for her because this is important to her. So then it becomes like communication becomes a dance. And
Yeah.
when you can dance in the communication without trying to be right or put somebody down, It's peaceful, it's loving. We didn't hold a grudge. Like literally, we were
Yeah.
laughing and joking and making fun of ourselves and going to get food and eating shit food and laughing at the shit food. But it was done. It was
Yeah.
complete.
Yeah. I agree. And on that note, I think that we could end this podcast right there because, communication is a dance and we need to be aware of what part we're taking in it. And we don't always have to be the lead. We don't.
Yeah,
We can all
love it.
sometimes follow in that dance.
I love it. Okay,
Okay,
until
folks,
next time, we'll see
have a beautiful day.
you.
Well, friends, that is the end of our episode today. If you love this episode, hit the subscribe button so you never miss another episode. And please share us with your friends and tag us on your socials at The Art of Being Unstoppable. So for today, have yourself a beautiful day and let's be unstoppable together. See you next time.